Okay. Is yours recording on my end?
Yeah, it says recording on my end.
Cool, because I can cut all this out at the start. All right, I'll get started now. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to an incredible episode of The Success Shift. It is episode 100, and I'm absolutely stoked to have gotten here. Um, I couldn't think of a better way to bring in episode 100 than to bring it back to how it all really began, which was the idea of an interview show. Since then, I'm always a fan of failing forward and failing fast and changing the path as we go. So we started off with some interviews, and then we've moved into a really in-depth sort of mindset and trading kind of discussion, and all about success and shifting the mind and changing perspective on certain things. And so for episode 100, we are going back to the interview style, and I could not be more happy with the guest that I've got on today. So this guest of mine is a friend. She's a personal mentor of mine and has a huge influence in my life. She's always providing me with great opportunities and good guidance. She's a homeschooling mum. She owns and runs her own business. Well, her and her partner own a couple businesses together, I think. She's a seven-figure trader who has helped many, if not hundreds of people, and continues to help hundreds of people grow and create that financial freedom and learn a skill that really does change your life. And she has an incredible transformational story, which I'll let her tell you in her own words in just a minute. But most importantly, she is probably one of the kindest and most genuine people I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. So I'm so glad you've given me the opportunity to join me here today. It's been an ongoing thing, and I've been wanting to have this interview with you for a while. But Teresa Guthrie, thank you so much. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me. I listen to your podcast all the time, and it had crossed my mind. I'm like, hey, how come we didn't do one with me yet on here?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you've had such an impact on my journey and my trading journey and the progress I've had, well, in general life. And so I've always said, it'd be great to get on a chat with you. And now finally, episode 100, I think it's perfect time. So I'm very, very glad that you've decided to join us today. Okay, so let's get straight into it. I want to know a little bit about little Teresa. So, what was it like growing up? Because I'm assuming when you were a young girl, someone didn't go, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And you're like, "I want to be a seven-figure trader." I didn't even know about it personally until I was in my 20s. So did you always want to be a trader? Give us your story. What was it like for little Teresa?
No, right from a really young age, I actually wanted to be very specific. I wanted to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, probably from,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like from very young, like I mean, at first I wanted to be a doctor. I'm guessing around the age of 3 is when I had said that I wanted to be a doctor. And I literally think by like kindergarten that it was as specific as a pediatric neurosurgeon.
That is hilarious. I would not have picked it, but that is so awesome. I was speaking to my mum was just here recently, right? And she was saying to me that apparently since I was about 12, I wanted to be a mechatronic engineer, which I didn't even know existed. But she was saying that, yep, ever since I was about 12 years old, I wanted to go down this journey. So it's funny. Most people, I think, that I speak to have that, like, I want to be an astronaut or an NBA player, which was a big one of mine. But to have such a specific and goal orientated and very niched out goal from such a young age. That's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because that was like my goal and my plan for so many years. And then I did 1 year of uni and that was the end of that plan. Like that just like and so then everyone that knew me and my parents, it's like that's all people had like heard me talk about for all these years. Like I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, and I had already mapped out all the high school courses that I needed to get into university and like even like what order I would take university courses in before I was even
Wow.
like I was in like in middle school. I think it was like ridiculous. And then yeah, after 1 year, my first level of university, I was like, no.
Not for me. Well, it's funny because neurosurgery, I've found a massive passion in neuroscience as of late, mainly because of mindset and trading. But we can get onto that in a little bit. And I wonder if you've had any correlation between that desire for neurosurgeon, pediatric neurosurgeon from a young age, and how it's helped with your mindset later in life. But we'll get to that. What happened once you finished uni? What was the plan from there, or what happened?
Yeah, so it was in university, when I was introduced, I guess, to entrepreneurship for the first time through network marketing. So I was like right at the end. Actually, I think I was basically done. I was writing my first year exams when I was introduced to, a network marketing company in the telecommunications space. And that basically is what pretty much did in me being to a doctor, because hearing all these people talk about time freedom, not so much money, because my what I would have done for a career, that it would have paid well. I think like pediatric neurosurgeons in the US, right? You're like 1 million a year. So money wasn't the thing. But I was like, oh wow, like you're right. Like, what is this going to look like? I'm going to be a doctor that's doing shifts of 36 hours. Like, when would I see my own kids? My parents were
Mhm.
always very involved in with my whole life in all of my sports and activities. They often coached my teams. They would travel with me to like out of town
Awesome.
tournaments, and they would bring extra kids with us that maybe their parents couldn't go. And so when I started to think about like what I actually wanted for my life, I was like, okay, like, well, this is not looking very ideal. So yeah, I completely pivoted, to the dismay probably of mostly my dad. I think at the time was just like, what are you doing? Um, so anyways, I started building this company, met one of my best friends who you know now, Sylvie. She's actually the one that introduced me to trading. So this actually, to me, it means a lot. It's I always talk about it and she kind of like blows it off, but I mean, the whole thing is all kind of ironic. It's like she was my first mentor in network marketing. And then come full circle, how many ever years later? Gosh, that was 2004, and she introduced me to trading in 2019, so 15 years later.
Wow.
And then she was the one that introduced me to the world of trading as well. But anyways, I started working with her in that company, and they were about to launch into Europe. And so this kind of kicked off it's like my traveling and my business, like entrepreneurship life kicked off at the same time, where me and a friend of mine, we just like dropped out of school. Literally, we were like 2 weeks into our second semester, or second year of school, and we dropped out, and we went to Europe to open this company in Europe. And then while we were there, it went bankrupt.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's the worst.
I
I've
was
heard
like,
some
oh,
stories about
no.
that network marketing companies that you launch into and then they shut down or something, and it's just not the best if you put a lot of effort into it and
Right
dropped out of
now,
uni.
here we are stuck in Europe, no money, too embarrassed to tell our parents, like trying to figure out something to make it work. Like, yeah, just kind of crazy. Um, but honestly, ever since then, most of my career, which is funny because most people in the trading world don't know this actually, but most of my career as an adult has always been either somehow in business or somehow in sales. A lot of time spent in sales, insurance sales. Yeah, I worked for Yellow Pages in sales. Yeah, mostly sales all the way up until getting that job that everyone kind of knows me for, driving the big haul trucks in the oil mines. But I only actually did that for about 4 years. And then out of that time, take out a couple of maternity leaves as well. So I didn't actually even do that for that long. And so all that experience in the sales industry and selling timeshares and stuff like that, I think that that also prepared me for the eventual success that I had trading too. Like I had done a lot of different coaching programs and mindset stuff over the years
Mm.
leading up to being introduced to trading.
Yeah, I see it. I know from some of our previous conversations that when you came into trading, your mindset was very strong and very prepped. And we talk a lot about mindset on this call. So I want to dive into that in a bit, but just going back a little bit, it's quite funny that I think we had the same reason to sort of get out. I did engineering. Money wasn't really the reason to jump out, but it was my life going to be. And I love that you went down the entrepreneurial path and tried to chase that goal and desire of creating that more time freedom. I know lots of people talk about financial freedom, but I think for me, it's more about the time freedom, which you were talking on about, which is very powerful. And we'll touch on this. It kind of answers one of my other questions of, what was your why? But just going back, because your short story is truckee to trader, basically, isn't it? You said just briefly there that you were this driving the big mine trucks, and then a few years later you're this seven-figure trader. What brought you to the mining industry from the sales? Was it just trying to get some stability, or was it an interest of yours, just a shift, or how did you get into the
Uh,
trucks?
it wasn't an interest, that's for sure. I mean, I think just like most entrepreneurs, we went through some hard times. So we had a company that we lost basically, or like I mean, we decided to walk away from. We had some big jobs that we had did for a company that we had done like multiple jobs for the same person, and he didn't end up paying us. And
Oh, yeah.
so we just, I mean, now looking back, I feel like we could have recovered, but at the time it seemed impossible to recover from. And we also didn't own the entire company ourselves. And so it was sort of like it had gotten to the point that we were the only ones really still working on it, but we weren't going to be the ones making, all the profits in the end. And so was it worth all the work? And so we just decided to let it go. And that put us into a really rough year. And so
Mhm.
it was at the end of that year that heard an ad on the radio or something for this. It was a specific program that the company was running to try to get women up there operating equipment. And so
Oh,
I applied. I can't remember now how many people applied. Like it was quite a lot of people, and they were whittling it down to I think like 20 of us in the end. And I just kept on making it through one stage at a time, one stage at a time. And I made it. And to most people, and I mean even to me at the time, it's a little bit like winning the lottery, honestly. I mean, I had to do some work to it. I had to write some essays, and I had to do a bunch of steps along the way. But for most people, the amount of income that you earn at a job like that, coming from not having a job like that, I mean, it's kind of a little bit the theory, like a little bit like winning a lottery. And so it was cool. But I mean, the lifestyle of that job was not any better than being a doctor. I mean, I was away
yeah.
from home. I had to travel 6 hours north of my house to go to work. Then I had to rent out my own place out there. It's not like I was provided a place to live. So now I'm paying rent to live in two different places. And when I was there, it was 15-hour days. So, I mean, it wasn't even possible to sleep 8 hours when you work.
Yeah.
And then you're driving these big trucks 12 hours a day, and they want you to be well rested. But it's like, well, look, your schedule doesn't even actually allow people to possibly sleep 12 hours unless they don't want to shower or eat or pack food for the next day. Like it's impossible.
Yeah, it's a different lifestyle. I mean, I'm from Western Australia, and the mining up in Western Australia is very, very popular. We have lots of my friends do that fly in, fly out kind of work. So it's a little bit further. So they fly in, do 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever your swing is, and it's just pretty intense. It's those 15-hour days, just as you were describing. And I was going to say that kind of takes you straight back to you may as well have done the neurosurgery because
Exactly.
you're spending those long days away from family, which it kind of goes against your why. But I wanted to jump back a little bit because you said you had, and I think every entrepreneur goes through this at some point, those struggles of you've tried like 4, 5, 6, 7 things and it's just not working or something else has happened. And, you know, you're feeling like, oh, I got to make some changes or, apply for this truck job that you had. What were some of the biggest challenges you've had to face to get to where you are now? And how did you get through those really that tough year or those tough times? Because I know as an entrepreneur myself, I've had many of them, and finding the strength to keep going and not like, from me being an engineer, not falling back and going, okay, screw it, I'm just going to go back to the 9 to 5 and do my engineering job where it's safe, but still hold on and go, no, I'm going to fight. I'm going to have the vision and keep pushing. Tell me how you kind of got through those points of your life.
Yeah, I feel like the hardest thing to get through, and even though everyone tells you, don't listen to the opinions of others and, things like the opinions of others pay your bills and all these things like that, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's still really hard to not listen to the criticism from other people. Um, and I think this, like most people that are trying to make it in network marketing, I don't think they don't really seem to earn a ton of respect from their family and friends. And so even at the start of my trading journey, I mean, probably the hardest thing to push through was kind of that, I mean, just like the relentless like heckling. I remember when I was super, super new to trading and so you start with a small account and you're trying to earn your 2% a day, but on a small account. So the dollar amount is, you're talking like $10 a day. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember people would be like, oh yeah, did you make your $10 today? Right? Like just like it's like, hey, like, yeah, I did. And like you just don't get it. Um, Or I don't know, my family, I went to Christmas at my, obviously, like with my family the first year that I started trading, and so I had computers with me and phones and stuff, and I was trying to take advantage of the break in trading and get through as much content as I could. And the internet doesn't work very well there and stuff, and
Mhm.
so again, kind of just like these comments all the time, like, oh, city girl Teresa needs to go to town to use the internet,
Yeah.
oh, always on these devices, and then pivot 1 year later, same house, same people, same environment, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, we installed better internet for you. And like, it's, oh, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. Wow. It's like, it's just kind of ironic.
1 minute you're
Um,
getting flack, the next minute it's like, oh, we knew you'd make it.
yeah, so I mean, to me, that's probably the hardest thing. The other thing that I would say, but it's not super related to trading, is just, but when things are out of your control. And so the sales pitch on network marketing, right, is like own your own business, control your own destiny, all this kind of stuff. But I had the unfortunate, just, I don't know, bad timing, I guess, of being introduced to a number of companies that went
Mhm.
went under while I was in them. And so this was a thing for me where I was like, man, what is this with this? Everything that I join keeps on
It's
disappearing
falling.
after I join it. Like, am I jinxing it or something? Um, so I would say those would be probably the two biggest things, was just like the lack of control. And when we started, so even though the original introduction for me to trading was actually still through a network marketing company, but because of the trading side of it, like I remember very specifically, that when we started, I was like, okay, but I like this because I can learn a skill set that I control regardless of what happens to this company. If I can learn this skill, I can work from anywhere, for the rest of my life, and have a way to generate money from my family from home, in air quotes, because for 2 years we have never been home.
Been roaming. Yeah. Yeah, you've done a lot of traveling since you've kind of made it, and you've had that ability to travel with your freedom and with your family, sorry, the freedom to travel with your family and homeschooling, which I think is absolutely incredible. Um, so when you say, so you obviously got into trading with a network marketing company, but you said some of the harder times was going through, and I just want to touch onto the mindset kind of side of this before we dive into your trading journey. But when you're like getting flack from your family, and when they're kind of, did you get your $10 a day? Was there any like mantra or kind of tricks you used, or mindset, or things you thought about that you really like grounded you, or anything that you kind of was like, okay, I just know that blah 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 blah, or was there anything that you held on to or said to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think just sort of like an internal, more of just like an internal strength that maybe had been built up over the years of already, already having read personal development books, already having listened to podcasts, just like stuff like that had over time already made me a little bit more resilient to it. But yeah, people that start and they haven't had any of that prior experience, they are going to really need to I don't know, put on some armor on themselves somehow by now starting to do those things, right? Like they're really going to need to kind of like protect their entrepreneur spirit from being damaged by other people by starting to do those same sorts of things. Personal development, and just like really, really trying to like work on themselves and their own mindset so that they can stay strong enough to not let it, not let it take them out.
Yeah, I've definitely been through my waves of that. When I first started, I think, young 20 entrepreneur kind of ego, that was able to push some stuff away, but then it would just come in waves where I'd just be like, what am I doing? Is this all worth it? And you just sort of collapse. And I think it's only, as you say, over time with doing that personal development and doing that mindset and kind of getting that skin in the game, that you can actually grow that thick skin and realize that, you know what, I'm not going to get affected by all the outside information and all the other things. Because when I was young and when I first started, I was told, just like you said, it doesn't matter what people say, or, you know, you can do whatever you like. And it's great to have that being told to you, but to actually put that in action, it's like, this hurts. Why are my friends not talking to me? Or, no, mom, I don't want to do that, but thank you so much for everything you have done, but I'm still going to go with this plan. Or, and it is hard to go against all the naysayers, especially when they're friends and family. Um, but yeah, it's just I think that's one of the biggest things for entrepreneurs. And this is why I wanted to touch back on it, is because if you do have a big enough why and you do really want to drive, it's really worth just going through that and doing the things that will build up that skin and build up that sort of resilience, as you said. Because I think once you've got to that point where you can see the final goal or you have that vision, then you're able to just keep pushing no matter what kind of comes your way. And for me, that took a long time to get to, and I still have moments. So it's interesting to hear from you that that was one of the hardest things, and that just doing that personal development and having that resilience already inbuilt was one of the things that helped you through. So good to
Yeah.
hear.
And just to be transparent, it still happens now, probably at least monthly,
Okay.
that I have some sort of, I don't know, some sort of, I don't want to call it a breakdown. That sounds like far too far too dramatic, I guess. But
Dramatic or something,
basically,
yeah.
some sort of thing where it makes me say, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Is this really worth it? Yeah, where, where just some, so obviously something's happened to trigger it. And I still do have those questions of like, wow, like, what am I doing? And is this all worth it? And maybe shed a tear or two, and then, and then get back to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, I think that's the thing is and I talk about this on the show a lot, is feeling the emotions and going through this. The process is fine, but you've got to like accept them, deal with them, and then move on and keep going and just get back to it. As you said, it's like, well, I can't really change it now. Let's just keep going and get back on the horse nice and quick. And that for me was something that I really took away, was not dwelling in the emotions for too long. And I think in trading, that's a very important thing, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second.
Yes.
So you went into a network marketing company, which was for trading, the same one that I went into, and this is how we kind of crossed paths. And then you just kind of grabbed onto trading and ran with it, didn't you? So tell us a little bit about your trading story. What happened? How quickly did you get into it? A couple of my trading questions here are, what's your time frame? So maybe you could tell us a bit about how quick it took you to really click into it and get the flow of it, and then how long it took you to kind of grow your accounts and get to the level of success that you are now.
All right, sounds good. So it's sort of a funny story. So my husband and I, the whole time we'd been together, and for him, years before us even meeting, we had both already been in the network marketing space for quite a while. That's actually how we met. I guess we're a network
Oh, really?
marketing love story.
I did not know that. There you
He
go.
picked up my card from from a chair. You know how, well, maybe you don't know, but like in the olden days in network marketing, you would put out business cards on chairs to save seats for your team and your guests, right? That's how you would save
Okay.
seats. And so he had picked up a card from a chair, and he wanted to connect with me or whatever. More from a business standpoint at the beginning, but inevitably we ended up getting married. But um,
Nice.
so the funny part about my start to trading is that my husband and I, we were on a vacation by ourselves for the first time in quite a while, because we had had a baby. And so my mom was taking care of both of our kids, and we went to Mexico solo for a week for his birthday. So we're in Mexico, no kids. I mean, you'd think that life would just be like rainbows and sunshine or something. But
Yeah.
no, on his birthday in Mexico, we got in a massive fight
Oh, no.
because he was saying like, "Oh, I can't keep doing the physical work of my company." He owns a junk removal company in Canada.
Hmm.
And he was like, "I can't keep doing the physical work. We need to do something else. It's just it's getting too hard on my body," all this kind of stuff. And he wanted to go back into network marketing. And so he was listing off companies that we'd already worked with before and being like, what about going back and doing this, going back and doing this? I'm like, no, like I'm not doing any of those. Like we're not in them for a reason now or something. I'm like, no, there's no way. Anyways, we got in a pretty massive fight in Mexico. And then we came back from that trip, and literally it was like 2 weeks later that Sylvie called me about, hey, like I think I found something that you could do and not have to go back up to work. Oh, I was on maternity leave. That's the other part of this. Is so when we were
Oh,
on the
yeah.
trip, I was on maternity leave with my little guy, but my maternity leave had technically already ended. I wasn't getting paid, but in the time that I had gone on maternity leave, the government had changed the program for 12 months to 18 months. But I had already gotten paid out my whole 12 months because they didn't change how much you got paid. You could have took less per month for a longer time, but I had
Okay.
already used mine, but I still took the extension, but I was earning no money. And
Yeah,
so
right.
she knew that I didn't want to go back to work. Like, how do you tell like a 14-month-old baby, okay, like I'll be back in 6 days? Like they have no concept of that. I just couldn't do it. My heart was just breaking.
Of
And
course.
so she knew I didn't want to go back to work. And so she called me and she's like, hey, you should look at this. And so I took a couple days or whatever. But I mean, and also my days, and we'll talk about this when I get into the trading part more too, but my days are not other people's days. When other people say I research something for a couple of days, they mean like I researched something for maybe 30 minutes each day for the last 2 days, right? So it's like a grand total of an hour. When I say that I research something for a couple of days, I literally mean probably a good 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I go down rabbit holes real quick, and I'm just on my computer like, I need to know everything about this.
Yeah.
I'm probably more like you.
So like I did most people's 1 month of research in 2 days and then was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. And it was like a absolute resolute decision from the very, very beginning that I was going to master this skill set. My life, I think, had been inconsistent enough with income and jobs and businesses and stuff that like I was just at a point where I was like, I want something that I control, that I know how to do, and that I can do from anywhere, um, and earn money for my family for the rest of my lives. And it's really hard to like relate to other people how strong that resolve was, but like
Hmm.
I meant it with everything I had. Um,
Yeah,
and so
that's
yeah,
fun.
from when I got started, same thing. Like, so I wasn't working, right? I hadn't gone back to work yet. So this is a fortunate part of my story is that I was on maternity leave and my husband was very supportive and he was like, you know what? I think that you shouldn't get a job right now. Just stay home, treat this like your job and
Hmm.
master this and I'll keep running my company. And it was not a good time for us to do this. It was the winter. And so this is his slowest part of the year. And this is now going to be the first time in our lives that we'd ever only been like single income as a
Hmm.
family. And so like it wasn't an easy thing. So like when I talk about what I started my trading account with, it's because that's all I had. Like when I funded my first account, I put in $50. It was Christmas time, and that's just like all I had. If I would have had $500, if I could have funded with 500 in the same um way that I funded with 50, like the same effect on our life, I would have done 500, but I couldn't. I didn't have it. Right? So we
Yeah.
didn't start with anything. I probably honestly out of everyone now that I've ever trained to trade, I probably funded an account with a smaller account than anyone I know.
Yep.
It's
I
kind
know
of
my
funny.
story doesn't have those small numbers. I've taken some big losses.
So yeah, so anyways, so I started at the end of November. I dove in, I was treating it like it was my full-time job. I mean, we're talking in the realms of watching videos at least 6 to 8 hours a day, around my kid's schedule. Luckily, my little guy, he was still napping a lot, so it was great. My daughter would be at school during the day. So yeah, I was watching tons and tons of content and attending all the live sessions that I could. But the
All
most
in.
important for me, for your listeners to know, is that like I had already decided that I was going to master this. That's like the biggest thing. And then I put in the work. And this is the part that I struggle with the most from understanding other people's actions is I have tons of people that tell me that they want to learn to trade, but their actions don't tell me that they want
Hmm.
to. So when I first started, I completely gave up watching all forms of television and movies completely, with the one exception of if that's what my daughter wanted to do with me for our quality time and she chose to watch a movie, then that's what we would still do for that quality time that she wanted to spend.
Nice.
But this isn't me entertaining myself with Moana.
Hmm.
It's just that's what she chose. um and I mean like sports games and all that kind of stuff too. And that's the part that I don't see from other people that say that they want to trade. To me, if you want to do something new or you want to learn something new and change your life, there's going to have to be some sort of sacrifice. And
Yeah.
for me, that sacrifice was things like that, watching movies and watching like television shows and sleep. I also for a good 10 months I definitely sacrificed sleep. I was staying up very late to trade with certain educators at the, like very late, like till like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning my time. And then I was still getting up at like 6 in the morning. So like 4 hours later, getting back up.
Wow.
And I did that for a pretty long time, and I would try to make up for some sleep on the weekend. But looking back now, and even at the time, I didn't care. I was like, this is totally worth it. And I would
Yeah.
say the same thing to anyone else. It's worth it. There's people all over the world that work 3 jobs that sleep just as little as I would, and they're just doing that just to
Just to make ends
survive.
meet. Yeah. It's great. I think one of the biggest things I take away from what you've said there is just like, and I think every entrepreneur gets to a certain stage where they've just like kind of had enough failures in a sense, or they've tried enough things but they probably haven't done it 100%. I know for me, all the things I've done, I've tried, but like that 100% commitment that you talk about definitely hasn't been there for pretty much all of them. And it's one of the lessons that I'm taking away from this is that when you say this, and you can even tell in the way you say it, that decision was made. You can't even stress how much that was made. And I think when you hit a point, you're like, enough is fucking enough. Like, I'm just going to make it work, and I'm going to give everything to make this work. And you can tell in what you follow up there with the sacrifices that you make. And a lot of the time I talk to people or on this podcast, and it's like, what is, I've quoted up, what's his name, Matt Manson, I think it is, who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And he talks about it in his like, what is your shit sandwich? Like, everyone's going to have one. Just pick one and stick with it. And the sacrifices that you make, like this lack of sleep. I mean, some people, when I'm a new father, and until my mum came, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to find time. And if I want to make it, I'm going to have to do those extra things. And I was getting up at 4:30 to get my little quiet time. And you can tell when you talk about your story that decision that you're going to do this, like no matter what, and then going in 100% and giving away all those things that don't serve you, I definitely think speaks truth to the success and the speed of the success of your story. Because I totally agree with you when you talk to people like, yeah, I want to do this. And it's like, okay, but I want to sit down and do this with you for 2 hours. Oh, I can't because, I've got my football game then, and then I've got to watch this movie, and then, I got a party on the weekend, and then I got this. So I can't fit it in. And this is where I always talk about priorities. Like, people say, I don't have enough time. Really, that just means I've got other things that are higher priority. And I think for me, it got to a point of, you know, where does my priorities lie, and actually making it and having, seeing, especially from someone who's been kind of under your wing for so long, seeing the progress and the potential that you can have with learning a skill like trading. Like, just give yourself 2, 3, 4 even years, however long it takes you. Just give yourself that time, and it won't be that long if you dedicate 100%. And I know, even looking back and reflecting on myself, I definitely could and still could dedicate more time, in a sense, to really commit to it. But it's that sacrifice, that removing of things that don't really serve you, and just giving it all for, not even that long a period in the end. Because you said you started in November, 6 to 8 hours per day. And then how long do you think it was until it really clicked with you and you're like, I got this?
Okay, so the actual trading part, by April, I was very competent and sort of what I would call, I was independently trading. I didn't need to watch an educator anymore to call trades. So I was calling my own trades, and successfully taking trades on my own, to the effect that I was consistently growing an account. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't take very long in time, but I really want to make sure to preface this, and it kind of ties into the last thing that we said, is that they say that it takes 18 to 24 months for somebody to master trading. That's like kind of like the most common timeline that I feel like I hear from traders and people that have books on trading. And all I feel like I did is, I think when they're saying that, they're talking kind of about people that still are working full-time jobs, and they're only trading part-time. But I had the ability, because I was home and I wasn't working, I did have the ability to contract that timeline, because I was just doing it faster. Like, how they say that thing also about like 10,000 hours to master a
Mm-hmm.
skill. So I just did it in a shorter period of time by doing more.
Yeah,
So
more
I
intense
I
work.
also boy, I'm just like nailing out all the sayings right now, but there's another one that's something that the comparison is the thief of joy.
Yep.
So I also think it's really important for people to stop, because I know a lot of people already are, um, or don't compare your journey to somebody else's journey, because I feel like there's definitely, like, even in our trading community, there's a thing of like, well, I've been trading for just as long as Teresa, so why don't I have the same results as her? Because there's a number of people that started right around the same time as me.
Hmm.
But if you're working a full-time job still, and then you've got kids and stuff like that, like, you can't possibly put in the hours that I did. So the
Yeah.
timeline is going to take longer. You're gonna need to watch all the same amount of content probably. Um, but it's gonna take longer. And you're not
Yeah.
getting maybe that effect of, it's like if you're watching one video and then you're not being able to watch anything for maybe a couple more days, and then you're watching the next video, you're not going to have that same compound effect of your learning as somebody that's able to, like, just do it every day and remember maybe better what they learned yesterday because it hasn't been so far
It's that
apart. So I would
compound
just
effect,
really
isn't it?
encourage people not to, just really try not to compare your journey to other people's.
It's funny you said that one, because when I looked at 18 to 24 months, I was like, oh, that's pretty much how long I've been training. Why haven't I got this success yet? That was like the initial comparison ruins is the thief of joy, like almost instantaneously, but that diminished very quickly. But it's a funny thing to bring up, because I think lots of people do that. They go, I've been doing it for X amount of time. I don't have the success that I was told I was going to get or that I thought I should get. This doesn't work, or I'm quitting, or whatever their excuse is or thought pattern is. But exactly as you say, everyone's different. Like, the amount of time you can spend per day, the consecutive days that you can do it, do you have the ability to trade regularly and consistently, or are you kind of patchworking? And also, like you said earlier, the amount of mindset and personal growth that you did before coming into trading was extremely important for I think, the growth and the success that you had. Because for me, I think there's a point where, you start to learn trading and you can get the skill set. Because I think maybe about after 8 to 10 months, I was an independent trader as well, but my mindset was nowhere near prepped for trading. And so the last maybe 12 months, if not longer, has been about figuring out my mindset and my relationship with money and self-sabotage and all these personal development things that I need to work through. Not so much the actual skill set around trading. Yes, they are interlocked, but the amount of mindset and personal growth that you did beforehand coming in, I think for people who have got that and have a really strong sense of self and strong mindset, when they get the skill set, they can actually, run with it really quickly. But I think you'll get to a point, and if you don't have the mindset, you're trying to figure that out at the same time, it can be a bit of a long, rocky road, where it really pulls out a lot of truths about you.
Yeah.
And that brings me to sort of my next question: is what is one of the biggest, like, life lessons you have got from learning to trade, do you think?
Um, I mean, just how your emotions or your mindset, how much effect it truly does have on the outcome of your life, or the results that you get. So when you were last talking there, it kind of reminded me of something else that I think that is important for people to understand, is that I think a big mistake that a lot of people make when they want to learn how to trade is that they spend m- most of their time trading right from the beginning. And I was willing to, like, I wasn't like in this like rush. I mean, I think people probably think I was in a rush because I got results pretty fast, just like, I guess, like, when you look back at it, it looks fast. But at the time, I wasn't in a hurry to make money trading. I was in a
Mm-hmm.
hurry to master the skill and learn how to trade. And what I find is, I think, and I don't know if you'll be able to relate to this or not, but especially men, I think, for the most part, or women that are way on the more aggressive side, they all they care about is like, I need to trade, and that's what they spend their
Yeah.
time doing instead of learning. And they can't slow themselves down and force themselves to just watch trainings and content or boot camps or workshops, because they're too distracted by the desire to actually trade, because heaven forbid you might miss a trade today that, was a
Mm-hmm.
big runner, right? It's like the FOMO of missing out on trading is too much for them to handle, to actually focus on their education.
I was definitely that. I think especially in men, and I'm not talking for all men, but ego has a lot to play in it. And I was definitely succumbed to that, in the sense of like, okay, I'm doing this and I learn, and then I had to like put it into practice and learn on the charts. But looking back at it now, the trading that I was doing then I had no idea what I was doing. It was 100% gambling, pressing buttons, hoping for the best. And while I do advocate like learning on the charts, I definitely think I would have better results or a faster pace if I had have given myself that time, like you said, to just master the skill and figure all the stuff out and then start to apply it. Because yeah, I definitely did that. I was like, I need to be on the charts. I don't want to miss a trade. Like, I've been doing this for 1 month. I can definitely become a millionaire by now if I just follow and get in the right trades. That was kind of the mindset that I think comes with it. And really, that I think what you said there is I wasn't focused on making money. I was focused on mastering a skill. That is paramount. And we talk about a lot about this, the difference between a finite game and an infinite game and the gameplay. And it's kind of like, do I have an objective goal? And I think lots of people come to trading like, I want to earn this amount of money. But if we shift it to, I want to learn how to trade so that I can trade every single day until the day I die, because this is a skill set that will pay me forever, then it completely shifts from I've got an objective I'm trying to reach to I'm in the moment, I want to learn this and just do what I need to do to get this skill set down. And I often talk about the mindset of infinite versus finite. And I think just the way you phrase that, like I was focused on mastering the skill, not focused on making money or getting a dollar amount, which is kind of the end objective. Now, if you master the skill, that's a result that comes with it, and it's fantastic. But having your focus, and it's so interesting to hear you say this, just on mastering the skill, I think is very powerful into probably why you've had that success. And I think, yeah, as a male, young, ego plays a huge part in wanting to jump on the charts, probably too early in a sense.
Yeah, and then my advice to people that have already been trading for maybe a decent amount of time, let's say, I don't know, 18 months to 3 years, if you didn't do that part in your journey, if you had just skipped right to trying to live trade all the time and you truly didn't really like, I mean, I watched the person that I was learning from, I watched their course material, the entire thing, and it was probably 40 hours long. I watched it
Mm-hmm.
at least 4 or 5 times, the entire thing,
Wow,
video by
that's a
video.
lot.
A lot, that's a lot of hours, that is like 200 hours, and I also attended every single one of his live sessions throughout that same time of watching of his course that many times over, and then I'll have people tell me like, "Oh, I already watched your boot camp from September." I'm like, "Just once?" Okay,
Yeah.
like, let me know when you're done time 4, right? Because you pick up new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But if you've already been trading for a while, it can be really hard to humble yourself maybe and get yourself to go back and do that and to like put your charts away. Well, actually kind of need them to do the work in it. But I just mean like
Yeah.
you're not live trading at the time. You're not also watching the market at the same time. And if you see a trade set up, you're also taking that trade. I mean completely dedicated focused time to going through content or like educational material, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just a matter of doing the work. And like sometimes I have to look at myself and go, it's people want the magic trick, or what is the key or the secret sauce that you're not telling people, but it's just doing the work. Just show up and put in the time and do the work, really. And if you do that, I think that's when the results come. And it just sounds like that's exactly what you did. And I think that's pretty powerful to put in all that effort. And then, as you can see, the results came. So I'm sure everyone wants to know kind of a bit more of your success timeline. So you went November to April, which is like 6 months of like finally clicking and being successful. And then what happened then? How was the growth? Let's hear how fast you kind of got to where you are now.
Yeah, so okay, so when I first started, I had already said earlier that I funded my first account with 50 whopping dollars. And
Mm-hmm.
I grew that $50 to 150 just before Christmas. And I was like, okay, wow, like this is cool. This is working. I will say that at the time, just the educator that I was learning from, now looking back on it, I would have considered those trades highly over leveraged, and I should have never tripled my account. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
just want to be really transparent. Like that is not the way that that should have looked.
Should have
Okay,
gone. Yep.
but you don't know what you don't know, right? You're just learning from somebody and you're doing what they're telling you to do, and that's just the way that it worked out. And so then at the start of January 2020, I added a little bit more money to that account so that I had a total of $500. And my goal for that first year was to grow that account by 2% per trading day of the year. So when we do these calculations, we generally use 260 days for a year of trading, because that takes away bank holidays and Christmas and accounts for some lower volume in the summer. So that's the formula we generally use as traders. And so if you do that, if you grow $500 by 2% for a year of trading days, it should come out to $75,000 at the end of the year. And that's what my goal was. And I was very committed to it, even though at the start, when you're getting up early and you're not sleeping and you're sitting in front of the charts for a few hours a day trading, all to make a whopping $10 a day, it might not seem very rewarding, and your friends might mock you, but that's okay. And so, yeah, I just did that. I just like was very focused. I was filling out a compounding sheet right from the very beginning. I was tracking my trades right from the very beginning. I wouldn't say I was journaling. I wasn't, so I was keeping track of my trades, how much I made, how much I lost, what the entry was, things like that. I didn't yet know to put a note section where I could keep track of like my emotions from the trade. That came
Mhm.
like, a few months, or I don't even know really, but that came long later. And so we started at 500, and it was about July or so that I hit a point. It was just somewhere just above $30,000. So I had grown my account pretty well. And then I had another investment from a different company that I needed to pay back that investor because COVID shut down that business. And so
Yep.
I withdrew some money to pay that person back. So that slowed down my compounding. But I just continued from there. And August of that year, I had my first big trading mistake. I don't know if you have anywhere already slotted for big mistakes, but that was my
Yeah,
first.
go for it. Let's hear about it now while we're on it.
Okay, so I by this point I was already trading on the 1 minute time frame on US 30, that's my bread and butter. I mean, I don't even think I've taken a Forex trade in 2023 yet. Um,
Nice.
so pretty much US 30 is it now. And so I had just entered a trade, and there was a knock at my door, and I got up, and it was the police. And they're like, "We need you to come with me." Like, that's all he said. Like, so I thought I was in trouble at first, the way he said
Uh-oh.
it. And and so I had entered this trade, and I had not put a stop loss or a take profit on it yet. It was just a open running trade on
Oh
US
no.
30 in the morning, right around market
1 minute.
on the 1 minute. Yeah. Full leverage, like full 1 minute scalping lot size.
Yep.
And so he's like, "Hey, I need you to come with me."
Dangerous.
And I was like, "Okay." And so I went outside, and anyways, I wasn't in any trouble, but he led me out to the back of my house, and my car had been broken into overnight, and people had done drugs in my car and whatever, all this stuff.
Uh-oh.
Anyways, by the time I got back in the house, it just happened to be a day that the market just went crazy. And I was $10,000 in drawdown already when I got back into the house on a on like a $50,000 account.
Oh wow, it's like
Um,
20% drawdown.
yeah, and so it was bad. So at that point, you really can't just like close a trade, right? You're not just going to walk in and see that much money and you're just going to press close.
Eh.
You,
Yeah.
you're going to move into management mode of how you can manage this trade, right? So
Yep.
then I did all the things that people are doing, right? I've got all these trend lines drawn up on every time frame known to man, and for 6 weeks I was stuck in that trade.
Six
And
weeks in a trade.
yeah, and it didn't get better, it got worse. So at the height of it, I was drawn down 50% of my account.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, and I wasn't sleeping well. Like, it was awful. It was really awful. And I've only done this one time in my entire trading career, but I know people that have done this to themselves many, many, many times. And it
Yeah,
is,
I've blown a couple of accounts similar ways, not understanding, not having the right leverage, not having the right risk management. And then in a second, it's just like, well, you're in this drawdown for, 4 or 5 days, just like, what am I going to do? And then, yeah, it's bad if you just,
it's yeah, it's awful. I mean, you're not sleeping, you're really grumpy to your family, right? You're snappy
yeah,
and grumpy, and oh, it's awful. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, honestly. Like, it's
risk
not fun.
management.
So yeah, so I mean, I just like managed that trade and kind of like, I had like limits of like, how much further it could go or, this or that. And so eventually it turned around and I cut my losses. I don't even remember for sure now, honestly. I'd have to look back, but I think I ended up losing like $5,000 on it. Like it came back pretty good, but there just came a point where I was like, okay, like the odds are it's not going to come any lower than this point. So I cut it at that point and
Cut
moved
your loss
on,
and run.
but I was paralyzed. So during that 6 weeks,
Yeah.
I actually didn't trade on that account. I was too scared of hedging. I was too scared of ending up in having two trades that were in drawdown and then affecting my margin. So I didn't trade for all that time. I funded another small account of like $1,000, and during that time, I was trading on that little $1,000 account.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
and after the knowledge of growing from 500 to 30,000 in what 7 months, how'd that $1,000 account go? Was it
I think I just ended up combining them right away.
okay?
Once I was out of that trade, I just combined them. I really struggled to manage multiple accounts. I don't know what it is about me that struggles with it, but anytime I've tried to have multiple accounts running at the same time, I make big mistakes. Like I'll accidentally use my big lot size on my small account or whatever. And like just I don't know what it is about me, but I can't seem to properly manage having multiple accounts at the same time.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I can't imagine. Oh, this lot size on this account. Yeah, it's either going to go very bad or very
Oh
good
yeah,
very quickly.
it goes very bad real fast.
So we're in July. You've had August. Sorry, you've had 6 weeks of horrible sleepless nights and drawdown, and then you've broken out not too bad.
So
And so we're what now at like September?
yeah, and so now I was really off on my trajectory for the year.
Mhm.
Because of that, like it really slowed down the growth. Obviously, I ended up still taking a loss. So by the time we got to November, I was gosh, I think I was like maybe back up to around 50,000, and my goal was 75,000. And so it didn't look possible. But then November and December were just really amazing. You've probably heard me talk about this before, that there's been 4 to 5 times in my trading journey that I've taken a 1 minute trade that happened to just keep falling and falling. And even with trailing my stop loss, that you were just able to stay in that trade pretty much
Mhm.
all day long. So I had one
Wow.
of those in November. And this is not, I really, really want to be clear about this, but like it's not purposeful. It's the same entries that I would always take. I manage the stop loss the same way that I normally would, but it just keeps going and I just keep trailing, and it just kept going. And like that's not what I'm looking for, right? I mean, my expectations of my trade are actually, generally speaking, I have lower expectations of what we're going to get out of a trade than probably anybody on our call.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Everyone
learning
else
that.
thinks that this is
This
going
is
to be
gonna
the
be the one
runner
that
and we're going
goes.
to
Yeah.
hold it all day. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm already out, guys. Like yesterday, you guys smoked me on my own live trading call. I was already wicked out with like 2 points or something like that. And other people wrote it for like 40 points. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, that does happen.
So,
So you
but
got
yeah,
a couple of these lucky ones, eh? And they just ran. And
yeah, and
November
it
was
just
good for you.
ran. So then that did some really good to that number and helped. So we actually ended up finishing that year at 105,000. So
Wow.
2% a day for the year would have been 75, and we ended up at 105,000.
Just
Um,
super discipline.
it was amazing, right? I mean, that's, to take $500 and turn it into $100,000. I mean,
That's incredible.
it's like the greatest thing ever.
That's a good first year.
Yeah, and then the start of the next year was just so like amazing. Same sort of thing. So like again, like even I don't take too much credit for it, right? It's not like I'm some sort of amazing wizard that did it. But the same thing happened in January where I was in a trade that just kept going and going and going and going with a full scalping lot size. And so that month I more than doubled the account.
Oh,
Um,
wow. In
yeah,
1 month.
in 1 month. Yeah,
Ooh.
I was
That's a good start to the year.
And then guess what happened the next month?
Doubled it again.
No, I lost it.
Oh,
Half of
no.
it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the next month was probably the hardest. I think even looking back at all the months, I'm pretty sure February 2021 was probably the hardest month of my trading career, if you want to call it that yet, I guess.
Wow.
The first 2 weeks of the month, I just lost. I just lost nonstop. And I literally, this is like, I was going to quit. I felt like I thought that it was all lucky. I thought that I'd just gotten all lucky. And
Hmm.
other people were also telling me that they were like reinforcing that they thought that I just got lucky because I happened to, my trading start when I started trading on my own and started trading US 30 also happened to correlate with the bottom of US 30 from the COVID drop. And so
Okay.
people kept on saying to me, and people especially, and people that don't understand what we do, because I think to you, I don't think you would have ever thought this about me because you know enough, but they thought that I was just only making money. They're like, well, everyone was making money because the stock market was going back up. But I'm like, yeah, but I was buying and selling. It's not like I just
Yeah.
like set a trade and let it run
Yeah.
and it
It's not
just
like
happened
it's
to go up.
a
I
stock that
was
shot up. Yeah. It's
I
different.
was scalping the same way that I do now, right? So I think like, do you understand what I'm saying? Is it
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I totally see it. From someone who buys, longs and shorts the market consistently, like multiple times a day, I can easily see how people be like, yeah, but you just got the bottom and rode it to the top. It's like, no, it's completely different things. So that
yeah.
would have been hard for the mindset when people are going, yeah, but it's just everyone's doing that. Well, not quite, not
Yeah,
quite everyone, and not to the same
but I
extent.
was really questioning it. I was like, wow, did I really just like get lucky? Is this only because the market just has gone on a steady climb up? But the whole time I was like, yeah, but I was also selling like probably 50% of the time. Like it's not like I was, I mean, you know how I
Just,
trade, right? It's like if there's a buy up, we take the buy up. If there's a sell down, we take the sell down on the
yeah.
1 minute time frame. We don't care about what the macro market's doing very much. Anyways, yeah, I was really questioning my sanity. And also by that time, I had now been running a live trading call for a couple of
Hmm.
months. And I was like, I shouldn't be teaching anyone. Nobody should be learning from me.
The
I'm not
imposter
like,
syndrome.
yeah, it was so bad. And so yeah, I tanked a ton of money that month. And that's
So
gonna
how did you? Sorry, just I think this is really important for a lot of people when they get that imposter syndrome or self-sabotage and this negative self-talk starts to come in, because that can just take a lot of people out and like just completely be like, no, I'm done, I'm quitting. But to get through that feeling of like I shouldn't be doing this, or I shouldn't be running these calls, or doing the detrimental thing or talking down to yourself. And how did you get through that? Because I think understanding like your mind in these kind of times can really help a lot of people. Like, what was the process that you kind of went through, or did you just stick with your guns and hope that it came out the other side?
Yeah, I wish that I could say that it was me, but I actually think it was the community. So, now
Interesting.
I was like a month in, or no, I was like a year and a quarter maybe into my total time trading. And by this time, I had this group of people that we've been trading together, people joined in at different times in that year and a quarter. But like we had this group of people. And now I did have this group of people that we were like doing a live trading call together every day. And so because of that, I kept showing up. Honestly, like
Hmm.
it's honestly to me, it's like this community is probably what actually allowed me to actually get to the success that I did. Because if I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
have that live call that I had committed to every morning and it wasn't like scheduled and publicly out there, hey, Teresa hosts this call every day. I just kept showing up to run the call because I said that I was going to. If
Yep.
I was trading on my own solo as just an independent trader, as most people are, I don't know. Maybe I would have quit. I don't know. It's too hard to
Wow.
say.
That's really interesting. And I think a lot of people can relate. I mean, I know for me, when I've had hard times and I've got this podcast that I'm doing, it pulls me out of bed. It pulls me out to ruts. It's like, okay, come on. Even if you don't feel like it, just get up and go. And then, by the time you start doing it and, a few episodes later, or, a few calls later, you kind of pull yourself through those hard times, and you're back to yourself again. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting to hear that you had that same with this community, which is awesome. But very interesting.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like that's a thing in life that has to me changed. I don't think it used to be like this. Like say when my parents were living the life that I'm living now, like just as far as like where they were in raising their kids. But I feel like people have a hard time making commitments to anything now, even if it's fun. Like
Hmm.
getting RSVPs for your wedding seems really difficult. Getting RSVPs to like a baby shower, getting anyone to firmly commit that they're going to be somewhere even for a trip,
Yeah, it's crazy. People
right?
just want an out. They
They
want that.
want
I
an
think it's
out. They
because
leave themselves an out.
they want them to have that opportunity, like if something better shows up. And I think this again comes down to
Or if
prioritizing.
they just don't feel like it. Like that's what triggered me to talk about this, how you said in the morning, like when you wake up, it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing the podcast, but I'm going to do it anyways because I have to. I think people leave themselves that out so that they
Hmm.
can choose to not force themselves to do something if they don't feel like doing it in the moment.
I think that's true for lots of things like exercise, discipline, like all the things. Even in trading, if you don't have those hard set rules, it's like you're leaving yourself that tiny bit of out so that in the moment you're like, actually, and then you can slip out or you can manipulate your rules or you can trade differently. And I
Yeah.
think giving yourself, I'm actually writing that down because I think that's a very interesting thing to bring up. But yeah, giving yourself that out and not 100% committing to something definitely is something people are doing more and more these days.
And I could have been running my call like that. Can you imagine? Like, I could have, instead of saying, I have a schedule of this time to this time every day, Monday to Friday, here's the Zoom link, just hop on. I could have been running it as, hey, if I'm trading, I'll send out a message and let you guys jump on if I want to,
Hmm.
or if I'm trading. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been like
Yeah.
a softer commitment.
I mean,
And then,
that comes back to like what you were saying at the start. You decided and committed 100% that you're going to make this work. And then you've also committed to learning and mastering the skill. And then you've also committed to making a community and being there and showing up on time. And again, just showing up
yeah,
and showing up and learning the skill is what got you to the level that you got confident with. And then now showing up and just running the call is what got you the success to the point where you are. So again, it comes down to just committing 100% and just showing up. Like,
yeah.
just do it. Wow,
Yeah,
it's
and then
interesting.
and then also the purpose behind running the call, also like at the time, it is now, and so it has shifted, but it was never my intention. But I was running this call so that people just that they had a place that they could come, which kind of was like a nice learning environment, where they could just come and they could ask questions live in the moment, and because that's what I needed when I was trying to learn and
Yeah.
I was trying to reach out to the people that I was learning from, and it was really hard to get like answers, and especially like live in the moment you weren't getting the answers, and sometimes with trading it's like you really need to know, like right now
In
while
that
I'm
moment.
doing it I need an answer to this question. So that's why I started to run these calls, and it was just volunteer. I wasn't being paid. Most of the people weren't even on my team in like the network marketing sense, right? Like you weren't
Hmm.
on my
I
team.
wasn't. No.
The
Yeah.
majority of the people now in our community weren't actually on my team. I was just trying to help people master the skill and give them a place to ask questions. But yeah, that's the only thing, is that I just kept that month. I just kept on still going on the call. And also, I think this is a big thing too, is that I also didn't change anything. So what I noticed with traders is, man, if people take a loss for 2 days in a row, they'll change their whole freaking trading plan.
Hmm.
They pivot too quickly, or the grass is greener on the other side, and they're
Yep.
always jumping from strategy to strategy to strategy.
That was my
Another,
first year at least.
right.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
And I did that for probably the first, like from November till about March. I was looking at tons of different strategies, but I don't mind that because I feel like I was at that time still looking for what I liked the best, what suited me the
Yeah.
best.
Still learning.
But
Yeah.
once you find it, then you need to hunker down and you need to master
Stick.
it, right? And
Yeah.
and I unsubscribed to everything else. I mean, to the dismay of my
Nice.
upline probably, right? Because I was paying for all these extra packages and tools and this and that. And once I decided what I wanted to learn, I was like, I'm unsubscribing to all of the other ones so that I don't get distracted.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I definitely would like start one, learn it, try it, get a bit of success, fail, and be like, this is crap. What's next? And I did that for so long until I found you actually. That was kind of the end. I was like, I like this. I'm sticking with it and I'm going to bloody learn it. And that was, what, 18 months ago or 12, something like that, 12 months ago or something. But
When
yeah, I
you
was
look
exactly that.
when you look at what we do now, do you feel like we change frequently or like very unfrequently, like what we do with the strategy as a whole?
I feel like I have learned the same thing from you the whole time I've been learning from you. It's just been the same
Yeah.
strategy that I've learned the whole time.
Yeah. I
Not
mean,
changing.
yeah, we've
There's like
only
small tweaks if we look at something else
like
or
we
something that
added,
can
you know,
maybe
like we
add
added
to
a
it.
couple, like I don't want to get into it on this podcast because most people might not even know what we're talking
Yeah.
about. But yeah, like I mean, we very, very slowly have added a few things over years. But what I see most people doing is like complete pivots because they
Oh,
had a couple losing days.
I went from trading US dollar JPY to HF, like high frequency trading, to swing trading crypto. Like I was jumping all over the place. Like it was crazy. And then I was like, I got to stick to something. And yeah, I'm glad I have.
Ah.
Right. So
Um,
we're running out of time a little bit here. We've
okay, I
probably
was
only got
like,
about 15, 20 minutes left. So yeah, you had your big downfall. The community brought you back up in February. And then where do we go
yeah,
from there?
yeah, and then from there it was just a pretty like nothing eventful all the way up until so I hit $1 million in summer, I think July. Yeah, July.
Mhm.
So it would have been July of 2021. And so I believe it's 20 months from when I started my $500 account until there it was 20 months to hit a million. And
I
I mean,
think I joined
obviously,
you just after that, actually.
oh,
Yeah,
really?
I think I
Oh,
heard you. I think this person's made $1 million, and I think that's what brought me over to come and jump into your calls and check it out.
oh, I didn't actually realize that it was just
Yeah,
after. That's
must have been
cool.
just after. Yeah.
But yeah, so I hit $1 million live on the call, um, on the morning call. And oh gosh, I broke down in tears so bad that other people had to they had to like step in and be like, so Teresa, like she can't talk anymore. So we're just gonna turn off the call or whatever. And it was really early in the morning because we were in BC, and it's I mean it's really amazing. We were in a mansion, like a I don't know how big that house was, 12,000 square foot house, I think,
Yeah,
with a
it's huge,
pool
wasn't it?
overlooking the Okanagan Lake. And I was with a bunch of people. And my husband was sleeping. This is the funniest thing. My husband was sleeping in the basement, and so this guy, he's like, "Do you want me to go wake up Jerry?" And so, he went downstairs and went into Jerry's bedroom and woke him up and told him to come up. And it's a really funny thing because it shouldn't matter, right? Like, so that night when I went to bed the night before, we were at $999,000. Like we were
Yeah.
$30,000 short. I can't do math right now.
Okay.
So we only needed to make 30,000, which on an almost $1 million account, like that's not very much money to need to make. And I kept on saying to myself, like, why does it even matter? Like, it's like, God,
Mm,
I'm basically at a million anyways. But I think it's a little bit part of my personality. I'm super, super just black and white, which I
yeah,
also think helps me be a
that
better
helps.
trader.
Yeah, I think so too.
Um, but anyways, it was so emotional when I hit it. I don't know
I
really
can
why,
imagine.
but
I
I
would be
was
emotional. I'm gonna be emotional when I hit my first million.
Oh my gosh, I was just sobbing and bawling, and then people were pouring me tequila like in at like 7 in the morning or earlier, I think. Like it was really early in the morning. But yeah, it was amazing. So that was
Nice.
super, super cool. And then after that, it's kind of interesting. So for me, in my mind, there's not really any milestone between a million and 10 million. I don't know. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So like, I've grown my account more. We're sitting somewhere like in between 2 and 3 million or whatever, and that's great and it's super exciting. But like, I don't know why, but to me, the next milestone just instantly skips from 7 figures to 8 figures.
Well, I mean, you kind of had the first year, you added a zero, and then the next year you added another zero. So, I
Yeah,
mean, it
I
makes
guess I
sense
gotta
just the
add
next
another
one's to add
zero.
another zero, right?
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible journey. And then so because of learning how to trade, and then the circumstances of COVID and not wanting to get locked down for another 8 month winter in Canada in lockdown, we left Canada and we've been traveling full time ever since. And that's the like I guess one last thing that I'll wrap that up with is that I often hear people say to me, and I feel like it's insane because they know the things that I hear moms say to me very often is I can't trade because I have kids. And I stand there and I look at them and tilt my head sideways and be like, but I have
What?
kids too.
You
Like
should want to trade because you've got kids. That's
yeah,
why I want to trade. The reason I wanted to trade is so I could be at home when I become a dad. And now I'm at home with a new baby boy and I'm trading. Like that's the whole
yeah,
reason you should want it.
exactly. It's a weird thing. They use their kids as an excuse instead of a reason to do it.
Yeah.
And then also the amount of people that tell me like, oh, I can't trade this week because I'm on vacation. I'm like, I've been on vacation for 2 years and I still run this
Yeah.
live trading call for you guys every day. Like if you guys could actually see, oh, I should do a video of this. This would be hilarious. If you guys could see over the last 2 years, the circumstances that have been around me, like my external environment while I've been hosting calls, it would blow your mind. Like I've traded in a closet before, so my kids can stay sleeping in a hotel. I've traded like downstairs at hotels in like breakfast rooms where like all these people all around me are getting their free hotel breakfast in the morning,
I've
and
heard
here I am
that.
running a live trading call. Like it's
All the
I've
seniors are coming in dancing away. I've heard some things in the background. It's hilarious.
I ran the call from my van. I've hotspotted my van. So we bought this piece of crap van to drive across America because we didn't want to have to pay to import it, and we just wanted to abandon it and let it go to a scrapyard when it breaks down.
Mhm.
And so the thing's like a piece of crap. Anyways, I've run trading calls from the passenger side seat of that van while driving across America. Like it's just kind of funny. So just try to really watch what excuses you're making for why you can't do
Yeah.
something, because that to me is probably the biggest defining thing of why I am where I am, is that I just do it, and like there's just not really any excuses that I haven't done
Yeah.
it.
Just do it. Don't make excuses. And more often than not, the excuse you have to not do something is the excuse you should use to do something. I found that so often that, oh, but I can't because of this. No, you should be doing it because of that. You should be doing it so that you can fix that problem, you know? I find that so often, but yeah, I love that about you. It's just do it. Just do it and don't make excuses. And sometimes it's messy at the start, but usually it comes through pretty polished up, and maybe a few extra zeros on top. It's great. I love that you just go for it and make it work. Right. We are kind of running out of time. I could probably talk to you for another couple of hours like this. I actually love it, and it's really nice to have your time and to speak to you like in this kind of way. But one thing I wanted to ask just before, again, I'm going to shoot you some sort of shorter answer questions. But the last thing I want to talk about is on this, like the whole point of this kind of podcast is to shift people's perspective on kind of success, right? For me, I believe success is just a state of mind. You believe you're successful or you're not. There's no kind of like attribute to it, except for what you put onto it. And I find as soon as people start to believe they're successful, then that acts as a catalyst to like get faster success. Was there one point in your time that you kind of identified as like, yeah, I'm a successful trader now? And did you think that helped? Or have you just kind of just done the thing and here you are?
It's an interesting question. Um, no, I don't think so. Like, it's funny. I think because there's always room to grow and there's always somebody that's at a higher level than you, I just still think that you're just always like, you just kind of always feel like there's more to get to, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's not like I go around, like, I don't self-identify as a successful trader. I think I just
Okay.
identify as a trader. And also I do identify now as a trading educator as well. I have, it's taken a long time, but it basically I have kind of accepted now, I guess, the feedback that people say that I'm a good teacher. But I mean, it took years to come to that point. I mean, I've been deflecting those comments and compliments probably for like 2 to 3 years until recently, where I'm like, okay, like, all these people keep telling me I've tried to learn from other people. I came to listen to you. And then suddenly I get it. You teach very clear. So now I would also say I identify as a trading educator.
Okay, that's good. And I suppose that sort of can be seen through your whole platform and stuff that you're building, which we'll touch on right at the end. I'm going to try and flick you some of these questions, try and answer them short. I wanted to have more time to them, but I mean, we've just been chatting so fluently, so we're running a bit out of time. But what was the hardest thing for you to overcome as a trader? You can narrow it down.
I don't know. It's never felt hard to me.
Okay, yeah, I've heard you say this before, and I think it's quite impactful. If you just look at it and go, I'm going to master this with the attitude you've got, then it doesn't have to be hard, which I think I've struggled to wrap my head around, but I love that. Um, what was one of the things you wish you knew or were told like right from the start that you maybe know now?
Proper risk management.
Proper risk management. Yeah, Yeah, that's fair enough. Then what was one message you wish, or like lesson you reckon you wish you could just implant into some of those students that you've got? You didn't have to teach them, you could just give them.
Stop being so lazy.
Stop being lazy. Okay, I like that because this is what we've been speaking about the whole time. Just do the work. um, we got a time frame from you. We've asked what one of the biggest life lessons is. Once you reach a certain dollar amount in trading, I'm assuming you're like, okay, I've now got financial freedom. What's next? Where does your mind sort of head after that? Did you have a place, or you just kind of, I mean, you're teaching now, so maybe that's what it was, but have you reached that level where you're like, yeah, this is financial freedom, and started to move somewhere else? Or is it still, I'm going to keep growing and I'm going to keep um, just doing what I'm doing?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I think everyone would agree that the world is in a little bit of a tumultuous type situation right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in a place that if I need to buy some land and be able to have a bunch of people come and live with us to, have a safe place to go, that I want to be able to do that. So no, I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Well, maybe I can we can do a part two when you are there, and we can find out where your head goes once you've actually reached that place. So the last two questions I ask everyone who comes on this show: what would be the one thing you could go back and tell your 17-year-old self? Well, I suppose you're in Canada, your legal age is 19, so 18-year-old self. Just anything.
um just do what you want to do.
I like that. I suppose that comes also from don't listen to the heckling from others.
Yeah, or just yeah, just I don't know, just do what you want to do and don't worry so much about what other people expect you to do or want from you, and just really do what makes you happy.
Yeah, I can really relate to that from my backstory. That's good. And if you could have the answer to any question in the world, this stumps some people. The complete truth about any question, what would it be?
Mm, Probably just more like what like I don't know, like what's the real true point of all of this? What's the whole point of life?
What is the point of all of this? Yeah, I think I have answers for that change almost daily. And I don't know which one's true, but I know my answers change for it all the time. What is the true point of all of this? That's good. All right, Teresa. Well, it has been absolutely incredible. Like I said, I could talk to you forever. And I think if I have the luxury of getting your time again, maybe we can do a part two when you've reached that financial freedom stage. But why don't you tell us where we can get you? I know you've got a whole bunch of teaching going on and you've got your website and all that. Do you want to just give us a bit of information, and I can chuck it in the description as well? But just wrapping up where people can find you and what they can get out of the lovely teachings you've got.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything is covered on my website, which is www.pipside.com. And that will cover like, all the education that I offer and the live calls. It will also introduce you to the retreats that we host, mindset and trading retreats. But yeah, pretty much everything is there, and you can contact me through there.
Perfect. Well, I'll put a link to that website down in the description. But Teresa, it's been absolutely incredible. I love speaking with you. Every time that we have a conversation, I feel I leave wiser and with more opportunity at my fingertips. And thank you so much for sharing like your backstory and the little Teresa's dreams and a bit about some of the lessons you've learned along the way. I've really appreciated your time. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and super fun to chat with you this morning.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for listening. And till next episode, enjoy, much love, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye. Oh, okay.